All right, good afternoon. Welcome to our Q2 State Advisory Council on Educational Opportunity for Military Children meeting. It is February 2nd, 2026. I appreciate folks' flexibility in the rescheduling what is usually a January meeting, but am happy we were able to identify an alternative date. We've still got some folks logging in, but I'll go ahead and move us on to our agenda. Today we'll start with some standing call to order and roll call. We'll be approving our meeting minutes. And so I want to remind council members that we'll ask you to review those in advance so you're prepared to approve those minutes as a part of the meeting. We'll also be talking about having a shared space moving forward, so those documents are a little more easy to access between meetings versus looking for emails. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Public comments are a standing part of our agenda. We'll have council membership updates. We do have an action item that we're posted for today, which is to reconsider a recent amendment to the operating procedures related to council membership. We're going to take our items a little bit out of order today. Next on the list is a 2026 council priorities discussion. I'm actually going to move the council member and staff reports up. We have some updates from Dr. Lay that I think can help to inform and focus our conversation around council priorities. So we'll be taking those out of order. We'll talk about some upcoming events, our next advisory council meeting, and then we'll adjourn. Before we get started or get too far into our agenda, we'll do our roll call. You can respond by present or here to indicate that you are in attendance. If you are attending as a proxy for a council member, please identify yourself when you hear your member's name called. We'll start with Dr. John Kraft.
Good afternoon, present.
Great. Jessica Garza. Brenda Howard. Brenda, I did not hear you, but I do see you.
Okay, present. Sorry about that.
Record is present. Thank you. Captain Bo Huffsettler. Colonel Ju.
Present. Thank you.
Dr. Ann Lay.
Present.
Nancy Patterson. Dr. Bernie Roper. The records show that I'm Jessica Snyder and in attendance. Simone Hendricks.
Present.
Madison Yandel. Technical Sergeant Nolan Zepeda. And then we have our vacancies listed. I forgot, I meant to mention, I was going to ask folks to go on screen for the roll call. We'll try again next time, but I do ask we have a couple of discussion items during those discussions. Be helpful, one, to have folks participate in those discussions and to come off camera when they do so. As we move forward, the next item on the agenda is approval of the previous meeting minutes. So again, this is a relatively new item for us, or minutes are not new, but the approval of the minutes is an addition to our agenda. They were attached to council members' invitations. The way this will work is when asking members to review those meeting minutes prior to the next meeting, and then as the agenda item, we'll need an individual to make a motion, which can be as simple as I move that we approve the October meeting minutes. We'll need a second, and then we can do votes a couple of different ways, but I'll probably just ask if we have any objections. Give a moment for anyone to object. If there are no objections, then the minutes will be approved. And so I'll draft that up for a slide in the future since it's the first time, but I'll just repeat, it's a motion to approve the October meeting minutes, and then we'll ask for a second. So do I have anyone who can make that first motion?
I make the motion. Oh, go ahead.
No, Brenda, go ahead. I'll second it.
Perfect. I make the motion that we approve the minutes from our October 27th meeting with no changes.
I have a second. Any objections? The minutes are approved. Thank you. And just as a side note, I mentioned at the top of the meeting, with the addition of this agenda item, we're also going to add a secure workspace where you can better access meeting documents between meetings. It'll also help folks share other resources pertinent to council business. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later in our agenda. The next item is another standing item. As in open meetings, we also have to provide the opportunity for members of the public to sign up to provide comment or to present, really to provide testimony before the advisory committee. We did not receive, we put that out with the call in the open meeting notice. We did not receive any requests, so we'll move on. Council membership updates. Is my item. So we have 2 new council members. Technical Sergeant Nolan Zepeda has not had an opportunity to join us yet. I will have a conversation with him between now and our next meeting, but we are joined by Colonel Peter Jew, who is our designee for the U.S. Air Force. And so I'm going to turn things over to him to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about him.
Right. Hello, everyone, and happy Groundhog's Day. I am Colonel Peter Jew, United States Air Force. I am currently the commander of the 47th Mission Support Group at Laughlin Air Force Base, Del Rio, Texas. And of course, our base does have a local school on post as part of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD. Yes. Right. So I'm still getting used to the acronyms around here. I have been in the seat since late July of last year, so just about 6-7 months. And I have been in the Air Force now going on 23 years. And with those many assignments that come with that, I have a distinct opportunity to be a part of this, and I'm very, very grateful to be a part of it. I do have 2 school-age kids. I have a freshman in high school, as well as a 9-year-old who is in the 3rd grade. And I was listening through the last meeting, and it sounds like the average moves that a military child has. I was hearing numbers from like 6 to 8 or 7 to 9 moves in the average military career. So it got me thinking kind of where my kids are at. So my oldest, Elijah, he's 14. He has gone to school in 6 different locations, and he is on his 9th school across those assignments. And then my youngest, who's 9, Nathaniel, he's now on his 2nd school in 2 locations. And so of those schools, I have been stationed overseas 4 times, and 3 out of those 4 assignments, I had at least one of those kids in a DoDEA school. So happy to be a part of the team, and really appreciate the welcome. And that's it. Oh, and I will say I'm a civil engineer by trade. That's what I grew up in the Air Force doing. And of course, my portfolio today covers a lot more than just that here on Laughlin. So thanks again.
Thank you. And if I didn't say so initially, welcome. You are going to bring a really unique perspective, both as a service member, as leadership, as well as a parent. And so I think you're uniquely qualified for the council. I would like to propose moving forward in the future, as we have on finding, as we fill a position, and we'll talk about it in a moment. It seems there's another position or vacancy that opens, and that's one of our priorities, or one of my personal priorities is addressing the vacancies that we have on the council. But because it is a rotating, there will always be a certain amount of a revolving door in terms of terms, both, and also retirements, which we'll talk about in a bit. I thought it might be helpful if we created a set of bios for each council member, so that we don't have to do what I'm about to ask folks to do every time. We have kind of a small group today, and so I thought it would be nice to pause and introduce ourselves to Colonel Jew. But moving forward, I think if we can have kind of a short bio for each of our members, that's something that, as part of onboarding, we could provide to new members, so that they can review that in advance and have a sense of membership. So we're not reintroducing and introducing ourselves each meeting, since we do have term positions and new members can be fairly common. But since we're a small group today, I'm going to ask folks to go ahead and I can do roll call and just give a brief introduction of themselves and the work, where they're coming from, what sector they're representing, and then we'll move on and talk some about those vacancies that I mentioned. I'm just going to go in the order of what I can see on my screen. Dr. Lay, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. My name is Dr. Ann Lay. I represent the lead of the Military Connected Student Programs here at the Texas Education Agency. So we work hand in hand with the council members to bring program updates on how we are supporting school districts, our ESC regional military champions, school liaison officers, and the families here. And so we're just working a lot with the field. And so just excited about this opportunity to partner with the council members.
Thank you. Brenda.
Yes, Dr. Chairman Brad Buckley appointed me as the House Representative Designee, and he did so because I've been working for the past 6 years on policy education. I was a military brat. I was active duty military. I have a son who attended schools as a military child, and so I've seen the gamut of all of it and enjoy policy education. So that's my background and what I bring.
Thank you. Dr. Kraft.
Good afternoon. John Kraft. Had the opportunity to serve as the superintendent in Killeen. I was in Killeen for right at 11 years, and you're probably very familiar with Killeen, Texas, and the military activity there. And then also I'm on my 3rd year here in Northside ISD, so I've had the opportunity to really work with all of the bases installations here as we serve a rather large student population here as well. So had the, like I say, opportunity to begin this committee assignment in Killeen, and been fortunate enough to be able to serve here in Northside. And have really learned a lot about what it means to support military families and students. So welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Kraft. Simone.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Simone Hendricks. I am one of the school liaison officers on Fort Bliss. We have more than one, working with the Texas SLOs, sharing that perspective here on the council. I've been with the school liaison office which is going on 14 years. So that's my background. Was a teacher before and raised 2 children in the military.
Thank you. Myself, Jessica Snyder, I realized I did not rename myself. I am showing a Zoom webinar, so I'll see if I can multitask and get that taken care of here relatively quickly. I am the Senior Division Director at TEA for the Curriculum Standards and Student Support Division, and so and also serve as the Texas designee for the Commissioner for the state, for the MIC3, for the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission. In part, that appointment comes with the job because we support the curriculum standards and the graduation requirements and the award and policy and rules related to the award of credit, which are often one of the areas where we see the obstacles and challenges that some of our students face. There are a number of challenges, but particularly when we're looking at on-time graduation, probably the highest percentage of the case studies and the inquiries we receive are related to award of credit and graduation. Those are the things that are escalated to our review because it is also one of the primary areas that the compact address. There's a lot of other areas that the compact does not explicitly address, but are still our topics and conversation. The other impacts, not just about credit and graduation, the other impacts of our students. So much of the work that Dr. Lay's group addresses that we can also surface and include in our discussions as a council. Well, that's a little bit about us. I promise that will be the last time for a bit before I ask folks, but that's going to require a little bit of homework on your part. So we will be following up with kind of a short template where we can get a brief bio that we can have available to members as we have new membership that joins us in the future, which brings me to our current membership. Captain Huffstetler let me know he would not be able to attend today. I was expecting someone in his place. Just as a reminder, if you're not able to attend a meeting, you are always welcome to identify a proxy. I do ask that you let me know if that individual has voting rights, if we have action items, and who that individual is, so I know to expect them, and then you can just share your panelist link with them. But moving to our first vacancy, and this is going to come up for discussion. We have filled an ex officio position that was recently added as council membership for a representative from the reserves of the armed forces. And we added a position, or I should say the amendment is unclear. So we added a representative from the Texas National Guard, a representative from the Texas National Guard. The question is that an and or? And so we'll bring that up in a moment. So that may or may not be a vacancy, depending on the outcome of today's discussion on our operating procedures. Moving down, Brenda identified herself. She is the designee from the chair of the House of Representatives Committee on Public Education. We are also working with the chair of the Senate Committee on Education, or at least that the chair's office, to identify a designee from the Senate. And so working on filling that position, that's when, again, we work directly with the legislature. I have another color coding here. Dr. Bernie Roper his term has ended. His position is the superintendent representative of a military school district, which is different from Dr. Kraft, which is we just have a superintendent representative. So he serves that position. We do look for ISDs that have probably a relatively high number of military connected students, but that's which Northside ISD is. That's different than a military school district, which is not just housed, but is actually a part of that installation. And kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, run by that installation. We only have 3 military, what would meet the definition of a military school district. So we anticipate that might be kind of a rolling term between those 3 districts. Dr. Roper has already kind of helping us to reach out to the superintendents from those 2 districts. And so we will hopefully have that individual identified by our next meeting. Nancy Patterson has just retired, and so wasn't sure if this would be her last meeting. I think she has already officially retired, and so we will start the process of identifying a district administrative representative. That can be any administrator, not a superintendent. Nancy represented Killeen ISD, and not alma mater of Dr. Kraft's. And so that is a position that we'll begin the process of identifying an administrator. Either we can look in again, the usual suspects like Killeen ISD, but I also want to bring up, and we'll talk about this later in the council priorities, we've talked about reaching out to some ISDs or improving our connections with ISDs that have lower enrollment of military connected students, which sometimes means there's less information and support systems for those students. So we can also talk about looking outside of the obvious choices like Killeen. And then the next vacancy we have is the parent representative. There's probably a fair amount of overlap. Sometimes between some of these positions, we can have a counselor who's a parent, who is a reservist, but you can only serve in one capacity. So while we probably have a number of parents on the council, the parent representative position is open. I had asked in the last meeting about some help if there were individuals that any members might want to offline discuss or recommend. And I didn't hear from anyone. So I'm not sure that the open call is the best option. So I thought I might just stop for a moment before we move forward and talk about for a moment when we have vacancies such as the parent representative. If there are any suggestions or recommendations about where I should go from here in identifying those individuals. I'm asking about your networks, your recommendations for identifying individuals who might serve in one or all of these capacities, with the exception of the designee from the Senate office. That one we'll go to the ledge for that.
Just a quick question. Do you need a parent of students currently enrolled or in school, or can it be a former parent that has maybe a graduate?
Yeah. All of the operating procedure says, and by the way, some of the positions are actually required in the statute that establishes this council, and some were TEA designees. It's the statute identifies a parent, doesn't say. And so I think I might put the question back to you of what you think. I think it might, actually I will answer. I think it depends. If you've got an individual who no longer has kids in school, but who has knows the territory, and you think would be engaged and invested, I think that could be a good candidate.
So my thoughts are that if you have a parent representative that has active duty, they're active duty now, that position would rotate rather quickly versus someone who, as Dr. Kraft mentioned, has had children in school, but maybe they've retired. We have, obviously, next to Fort Hood, we have Killeen, Harker Heights, so we could pull from that area for sure.
Yeah, and Brenda, you probably know. I was just thinking Todd Fox. Both his students
Oh,
have graduated, but I think he would be an excellent candidate. Retired colonel, former garrison commander at Fort Hood. If he'd be willing, I'd like to say
he's
one
a
name that comes to mind.
And I
no,
would
that's a
mention-
great name, and he is a bit busy, but that is a great name, and Chairman Buckley could, or you could reach out.
Sure.
And I think for the purposes of our open meeting, if you want to frame individuals and their experience, but without not identifying those individuals, you can share this with me. But I appreciate some of the specificity because I think it helps, because when I have the open call, I think it's harder to think of people. So I really appreciate you bouncing ideas off of each other, but let's try to refrain from using individuals' names for the purpose of our open meeting. Colonel Ju, did I see you coming off mute?
Yeah, I think for the Air Force side, it wouldn't be too hard to at least get a call out to all the installations in Texas to see if anyone is interested in doing it. But obviously what would help is if we have a quick one pager that shows what are the expectations of this position for the parent representative, what are the qualities and backgrounds that we're looking for. That would definitely help, right? Instead of just asking the question, hey, who wants to be a parent representative for the MIC3? At least getting a little bit of information out there that we could all agree upon is what we're looking for from the parent rep. And then also I would say, a dependent spouse would probably have some really good insight on what it takes. I think a lot of times the military members, myself included, we're kind of sometimes removed, right, from what the parent has to deal with. That's at home with the kid a lot of times. So that's nothing against spouses that have to deal with that. It's just we have a different perspective on things, I think, as a military member. That's just coming from personal experience. Over.
really like one of the things that I heard was a one pager, which I think could be useful in identifying for all three of the vacancies that we have, but also a part of onboarding for individuals as they join, of what to expect. And so I think that is something that staff can pull together and share through this workspace that I've mentioned and make available to council members who might want to use to approach anyone if you wanted to, one-on-one have the conversation. We would probably, just as an FYI, when we have opened positions and had names referred to us, staff have reached out to the individuals and with more information and requested a CV. So when we are fortunate enough to have more than one individual interested, we request that CV. And then in the past, the council has indicated they're comfortable with TEA making the final decision with that information. We're always trying to look geographically too to see if something makes more sense to have greater and broader representation. But love the idea of having the one pager. The other thing you said, Colonel Zhu, is what we're looking for, and was wondering if, as a new member, it's not really fair to put you on the spot, but you're welcome to answer this question. And this might help me in the creation of that one pager, but what do we think? I heard a couple of things, but what as a council would be some of the experience or expertise that you might be looking for a parent representative to contribute?
Yeah, I think the second part of my comment was more based on the fact that if you look at what's on the screen right now, we already have a heavy military representation. We have a lot of educators already, people who have been in school, in the school industry for a while. And so having a parent rep that is, kind of overlaps with any of those, to me, might actually kind of, water down what that position could potentially provide, right? We're going to have same perspectives, a lot of the same ideas coming through because we have shared experiences as military members and or educators, right? I'd like to get perspective of somebody completely outside of the lane that is a parent of a student that may have nothing to do with the education enterprise and get their take on things purely as a parent of a military dependent child, student. And I think that could potentially help, right? And to deliberately seek somebody who doesn't have that experience in, being a counselor or an educator or, anybody in the school system. Over.
A true parent. You're all true parents, but someone who is truly feeling that as the parental who's experiencing firsthand, not necessarily through the lens of educator or military, but just the parent of a military connected child.
Correct.
Other thoughts? So we have an interested the benefit of including actual names is we have the benefit of some real-time volunteerism. So we will definitely follow up. That is the benefit of an open meeting. Any other though from other council members of experience or expertise that you think would be helpful to bring to the table as a parent representative?
Can I just add, I think, along the same lines as the Colonel just said, a parent, so that they can share the experience of how they used the avenues and resources that we as school liaison officers and the school and the council can provide, and what their experience is, how they solve their problems or issues or transitional issues. I think that would be very beneficial. Were they aware of what resources are out there? And if so, how were they using them?
That is just additional support for bringing in a parent with a unique perspective, the unique perspective of a parent who's not necessarily affiliated with one of the other two kind of entities that we represent, an educational system and the military sector. Any other thoughts or ideas about specific to the parent representative? I appreciate the conversation. I do want to circle back to the district administrator representative. Again, our previous representative is from a very military connected school district, Killeen ISD. Would like to hear your thoughts about if we should continue to explore in school districts that are closely connected to the installations that have a high number of military connected students enrolled, or if this might be one of the areas or opportunities to work with some of the districts that are less, that have lower volumes but of numbers. And I'll just leave it at that. Or should we look outside of some of the what we traditionally think where we might traditionally go?
I agree, Jessica, that that's a great thought, that maybe we want a school that has fewer military students. But I do agree that we should, well, I guess everyone here has military installation near them, so their voices are heard. I was just thinking about the fact that Nancy Patterson is from our area and has Fort Hood and intimately knows on a firsthand basis the transfer in of students and what those hardships are and that type of thing. And any of our ISDs in our area would also bring that knowledge level or experience level to the situation. So I'm not too sure if having an administrator who doesn't deal with that, what quite maybe what benefit that would be. I do see sometimes you want to think outside of the box, but I'm leaning towards another installation administrator who has to deal with it on a daily basis.
Other conversation or recommendations for the district administrator position? Right. Well, we will, we just learned of Nancy's retirement, so we haven't really started planning for that identification and recruitment process. But we'll either bring updates or more questions to you at your next meeting, or potentially a new representative. But the parent representative we've been working on for a while. I will mention, I think as we look at and already have some interested parties. We have also, I mentioned, been working directly with the Office of the Senate Committee on Education, and we'll be helping them to identify some potential candidates. And so we may have, if individuals who are interested in this opportunity and serving, to please reach out either to a council member or to Dr. Lay. We'll have some contact information at TEA that I can't get to quickly here on my slides, but there's a few ways to let us know that this is an opportunity that you would be interested in. So thank you for the conversation. With that, I'm going to move to what I think will be should be a relatively quick action item related to the operating procedures, also related to council membership. I'm going to try to do this seamlessly of pulling up the operating procedures into, there we go, not seamlessly, but I have a little finicky shared screens here. There we go. This is just an excerpt of your operating procedures, the section 2.1 of membership. You'll notice in B, like boy, we have one non-voting ex officio section of the membership rules or procedures. We identified that the council shall include a representative from the Texas National Guard, and then in Romanet number 2 there, which is what we call lowercase Roman numerals here, a representative from the reserve component of a military branch. What we did not do, which was my oversight, is include an and or. Now, I believe it was the intent of the group for that to be an and. But because it wasn't in the procedure that I had in front of folks and they were voting on, I'm bringing it back to the council because we'd also discussed, is this truly 2 positions that we wish to fill, or does the council prefer to have a single ex officio position that could be filled by one or the other? I think pros might be that if it's one or the other, then we have met. Then that position, then we do not have a vacancy in this area. If it's an and, we would identify that second position. I think maybe the things to think about are, is there something unique or different from one or the other that would add additional value or perspective to the council. I'll take just a step back and for newer members, this idea was initially brought by the former commissioner, my predecessor, Shelley Ramos, who had learned through the national meetings for the Military Interstate Compact and talking with other states that many states do have an ex officio representative from the National Guard or from the reserve component. And in certain circumstances, the compact does apply to these families if they meet the eligibility criteria. And so given that, and I think when I say many, it is not most, I think it's 17 of the states had at least one. I don't know how many have both or only one. The surveyor poll didn't have that level of detail. But that's how this council, the Texas Council, moved forward with the addition of this position. So the question before you today is whether or not this is an and or an or. And so I'll open for discussion and then we'll have a vote.
Just kind of a quick question before we start discussion. Is a reservist, in fact, is a Texas National Guard soldier actually a reservist? Does anyone know that answer?
Oh, it's a little different.
Thank you. Good.
I was going to say, I recall the Navy captain at the last meeting saying he didn't think there was a need to have both, which I tend to agree. But to your question, on the reserve side, they could be non-Texas residents that are part of a Texas Reserve unit. However, on the flip side, if you're on the Texas National Guard side, you are definitely a Texas resident. So there's a little nuance difference there. And that's where I would say that's one of the biggest differences that you would see between the two. But in terms of Title 32, Title 10, if you know what that's referencing, Guard and Reserve are all Title 32 until they're activated onto Title 10 orders. Over.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it for me that there is maybe a little overlap. So I'm in favor of an or, even if the original intent was an and, because of the possible duplication. Those are just my thoughts.
I agree. I would say or is probably sufficient, although ideal to have one of each. But I would just say if we are in that one or the other situation, that individual understands that they need to represent both Reserve and Guard and not just from the lens of whichever component they're in. Over.
If I might add, originally, since on our program side with PEAMS coding and identifying military student identifiers, we do separate them with National Guard and Reserve components as two separate entities. But because this is a non-voting position, I would say or would be sufficient.
Agreed.
And I guess I'll also add there could be Texas state residents, reservists who are actually part of reserve units outside of Texas. So it goes both ways for the reserves. Yeah.
So I think I'm hearing that there could be some benefit to having an and, but no objections to an or. Might be we're a little on the fence. I'll go ahead and put, even though it's the less efficient of the two, I can put out there. The council could also leave it as and potentially one position is open at any time. We might be able to fill. We might not prioritize filling if we had a vacancy between the two, prioritize other vacancies in front of them. And then if we're able to fill the second position, we could do that as well. I personally like the neatness of not having languishing vacancies at the same time. So that might be an argument for the or. But I think given the discussion, I'll call first I think just about everyone has chimed in. Dr. Kraft, feel free to chime in if you would like to. But I'll just make a call if anyone would like to make a motion for either. The
I'll make
insertion.
the motion for the language to include or.
I'll need a second.
I will second.
Thank you, Dr. Lay. Any objections to the addition of or? Hearing none. The motion carries. All right, then we will reach out to our current representative, Technical Sergeant Cepeda. I think we've had a little bit of a communication lapse, but are getting making sure we have the right contact information and that he has the panel links, everything that he needs to join in future meetings. So I appreciate everyone taking up that cleanup housekeeping item in our operating procedures. As I mentioned, we're actually going to skip our council priorities and move to our council member and staff reports. So I'm going to be turning things over to Dr. Lay in just a moment. Want to remind council members that this is also an opportunity that always presents itself for you to bring up any updates, issues, questions, or concerns in your areas that you would like to discuss. We can't take action on items, but it's a good opportunity also to let staff know about things that you might be interested in addressing in a future meeting. You also have opportunities to review the agenda and suggest things between meetings, but just a good opportunity to have conversations if there's something on your mind. It can be very informal. You're also welcome to submit PowerPoints or presentations if you have a more structured or formal update you would like to provide. It's also just a good opportunity to let us know, like I said, good things that are happening in your neck of the woods. So I want to encourage folks, if not prepared today, to provide an update, to be thinking about that in advance of future meetings, because it really is not just a staff update, that we always have things that we're eager to share. So with that, I will turn things over to Dr. Lay.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so our military connected student programs is housed in the highly mobile and at-risk student programs unit within Texas Education Agency. So on the next slide, you'll see that today's status update, we want to focus on 3 highlighted areas. The first one is completed professional development and capacity building events that we've held. The second one is reminders about upcoming opportunities, and these are open to educators, to families, to community members. And then lastly, what we have highlighting some resources to support both military and educational stakeholders. And each of these updates do align to the council's priorities. So on the next slide, the first thing that I wanted to share is that through our grant work with our Military Child Education Coalition, or MCEC, our Purple Star Campus Support PLC, or Professional Learning Community series, is in full swing. We have held 4 PLCs so far, and all 4 is on our HMAR webinar webpage. So anybody who weren't able to attend can access it, the recording, and also a copy of the presentation. And then our last PLC session is going to be scheduled for February 19th. And these are not just about Purple Star Campus designation, which is an initiative within our military connected program. It serves as a framework for schools and educators to support military connected students across Texas. So don't be swayed one way when you see Purple Star. It is not just about Purple Star. It is the framework and how to best support our military connected students. On the next slide, similarly, we've had a great turnout with our military professional developments in the fall. We held our supporting military children through school transitions, college-bound financial aid and college preparation support for military families. And then we also held our We Serve 2 National Guard and Reserve Children PD. What we do have upcoming is a agency Purple Star interest meeting, which is March 4th. And then our last PD is Military Service Ins supporting children of veterans on March 25th. Our next slide, we want to highlight that we've held our very first statewide inaugural Texas Military Connected Student Support Summit just last week at Region 20 Education Service Center, which is in San Antonio. This was a free full-day event bringing together educators, administrators, and partners from across Texas to share best practices, exploring new strategies, and strengthening supports for our military connected students. And Colleen had a very large attendance record. We had about 30. They chartered a bus and bussed themselves to our summit. It was amazing. Got to meet so many passionate educators out there. So it was a great event. And then on our next slide, it breaks down the sessions that we've held. So serving military connected students started as a national PD session presented by our military coalition group. And then it moved into our keynote speaker, which is Miss Lori Phipps. She is the chief of the Department Air Force, a school liaison program. And then Lindsay Dablow was supposed to attend and present in person, but she had some traveling issues because of the weather. So we did Zoom her in and she was able to present on the MIC-3 Compact. And we had a lot of scenarios in which she walked us through whether we got the right compact chapters and just learning through all that. And then our last session was our state agency and our military champions at the Education Service Center partnering together to bring Texas school military supports so that our educators would be able to learn best practices and understand where the resources are to better support the military connected students. And with that, on our next slide, I will drop the link to this one into the chat after this, but it is our statewide military student identifier data report. So our agency, I developed this report to highlight the number of military connected students, and this will show you a 4-year trend on the growth of our military connected students based on also our PEIMS coding, which is active duty U.S. military, National Guard, Reserve, those in pre-K, those who are veterans, and those who have fallen in the line of duty. So it breaks that down, but also on the second page, it also breaks it down by the 20 education service centers, and you can see where most of our military connected students are. Some are near military installations, some are not. So it's very important for us to be able to bring the resources and the awareness to all of our districts and all of our education service centers so that these supports is aligned across Texas. On the next slide, this resource here was presented at the summit. This is a brand new resource for our schools and our education service centers to understand the additional resource that is available for schools and community partners, and it is at the Education Service Center. So we have voluntarily designated military champions, and this helps to guide individuals to understand how they can serve as a support system for schools, for families, for the installation. But not only that, they can help to advocate for those services and support. And then lastly, along with MSEC, TEA will be celebrating April, month of military child, on April 10th. We are letting the schools choose which day works for them because it does occur around STAR testing time. And so we allow that flexibility. But what's very exciting is we are about to unleash a month of military child toolkit, similarly for what you see on MSEC and MIC-3. But this is Texas Education Agency's first toolkit. And it's going to be called Brave Hearts, Bright Futures, Texas Month of Military Child Toolkit. And it will be a collection of resources that can help to celebrate military connected children. There'll be some social media promotions and just a lot of very good templates that schools can use. And lastly, I think there's one more. There is a QR code for our military webpage. It is a resource hub for all of our stakeholders, and we keep it updated with recent resources that are rolled out and also any available PDs that are coming up. Thank you. And I will drop the link to the data report into the chat.
this is, there are a few reasons why I wanted Dr. Lay to present before we talk about priorities. I feel like some of these activities lend themselves very well, and as she mentioned, are aligned to priorities that the council has membered. So if there's anything that we want to ride on the coattails of or connect to or promote, there are opportunities to do that. Also think it's helpful to go into that conversation knowing that there is quite a bit of support and resource development training opportunities that are promoted through the agency. The council is separate and apart from the agency, but we support the council and your initiatives. And so understanding, having awareness about what Dr. Lay is working on and what her team is working on, again, is important to know that there are things that are happening, and just where there are opportunities, again, for us to support and or promote that work. Somewhat related to resources, I keep mentioning, and I will won't share a link, but I'll bring up again in this, well, I guess in my report, that we're creating a workspace for council members. And I think some of these things, not only we have a place to go where you can get the last presentation, the meeting minutes, but I'll work with Dr. Lay to see if there's any particular resources that we might want to pull into that space. At a minimum, links like this one to the highly mobile at risk units web pages where these resources can be found, so that you hear about them, you see them, sounds great, but you know how to access them but between meetings. So this QR code will be saved into that folder. You'll have access there if you're not able to grab it. But I think we can also provide some direct links to some of those resources and web pages that she just mentioned. Any questions or comments for Dr. Lay?
It's wonderful. Tell her, thank you. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping us updated. I have a quick update. Did not get to this in the October meeting. I said I overplanned a little bit in trying to do a training and then some other updates. So we'll be mindful of that in the future, but wanted to give an update from the Military Interstate Compact Children's Commission MIC3 annual business meeting that was conducted back in October. There were a couple of action items. So the annual business meeting is when the commissioner from each state, we come together, review any revisions or updates to the rules. The budget committee presents, and just other compact business is conducted. There was an amendment to the rules for the dues formula. A couple of meetings, I think it was in the July Advisory Council meeting, Greg Lynch, who is the commissioner from Washington, presented to the council and talked about the proposed new dues structure. Each state pays dues to participate, and those dues are based on the number of students. And so, believe it or not, Texas is not the highest paying member. That's Virginia, but we are our number two. I'll show you the amendment that was passed and impact to the budget. There was also a compliance fee assessment. We will be, which passed. States that are not in compliant with what is outlined in the compact agreement will be assessed. It's a rather small fee. I apologize that I don't remember what it is, but we have a couple of requirements to maintain our membership in the compact, which include providing an annual report, paying our dues, and that's about it. And then attendance. Of course, you can't always attend the annual business meeting, but that we either attend or at least RSVP. And so there will be a small compliance fee for states that are late or don't meet those requirements. Elections were held. There's a new national chair. And then we also had an applicant, an ex officio applicant. There are a couple of not professional, but nonprofit organizations that support military connected students. The Education Commission of the States is applying for membership as an additional organization. I think you would recognize the current ex officio organizations, Blue Star Families, MISA, MSEC, and the Education Commission of the states is applying for membership as well. This is the dues formula. What Greg Lynch presented to the council was that the dues formula and structure had not changed in about 20 years and was set at $1 per student. There are a lot of calculations that if you wish to know more, he actually presented at that meeting. You could go back and watch the July meeting, but the outcome of it all in their projected 5-year plans is that we'd need an increase to $1.78 per child to keep up with commission initiatives and inflation. The rule did pass. And so I will share in a future meeting what that adjustment will look like for Texas moving forward. It is funded by the Texas State Legislature. The council doesn't need to approve that budget or formula, but just wanted to keep you apprised of Military Interstate Compact business. And this is the secure workspace that I keep alluding to. It's called TEA ShareFile. We will, it's a place where we can organize ourselves and keep our documents so you can access them between meetings. We will keep meeting minutes and presentations there. A copy of your operating procedures. We do have a webpage at TEA, but we can put a little bit more information in this workspace that we would not put on the website. We have some flyers, some training flyers that were developed to promote the compact in our state that we can make available. Other communications that might be things that you need to come back to and reference important links as I referenced. And we'll have our meeting dates and other reminders. So we are still filling out the folder structure, but what you need to know is that you'll receive an invitation. Oh, I mentioned that bio template. We can send that out in an email in advance, but we can also put a copy of that template and any other like homework or items that you may need to review before the next meeting, we can make available to you in this workspace. But what you need to know is that you'll be receiving an invitation to join the TEA ShareFile system. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I believe it's a link. I wanted folks to know it's safe to click on that. You're hearing about it here in advance before the end of the week and expect that invitation. You'll just be asked to set up a password and then you'll be able to go directly into your folder. Actually, I say directly into, I believe it's a 2-step process. I think you log into ShareFile and you will have to choose shared folders because I am sharing a folder with you. There'll be a full folder there, shared folders. And then you'll have your State Advisory Council folder in there. So if you have any questions or concerns about the email, the link, or setting up your account and logging in, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly, but I wanted you to know in advance that that's coming so you knew that it was a legitimate request. And hopefully will be a good resource in staying on top of council documents and next steps. And so as I mentioned, if you're not prepared today, I would like to encourage folks to be thinking about updates from your neck of the woods for future meetings. But here's where I pause and see if we have any council member reports or updates to share. Yes, Brenda.
So obviously I'm the House designee. So I went to Chairman Buckley's and his staff and asked them if they had any input, what they would like, what their expectation is. And so the only thing that we came up with was that we want to make sure that the new Texas Education Freedom accounts are somehow that the military child doesn't get lost in translation with that opportunity. And so I do work a bit with the comptroller's office, and the comptroller's office right now says that there is a set window for applying. And we all know that military children come in throughout the entire year. So that maybe needs to be addressed. And I'm not too sure where and how. So right now, in general, they're just suggesting that we look into making sure that the military child does not miss out on the Texas Education Freedom Account opportunities that will be available to all Texas students. And I say all meaning it's not all at this point. There is a dollar amount in the budget without getting into too much detail, but we do want to make sure that they have that information available to them.
Thank you for the update. Questions or comments for Member Howard? I think,
Can I?
yes,
Oh,
please. Yes,
I
please.
was going to say that as the school liaison officers, we have shared that information with our channels that it is available, and when the window opens for applying, it's a little step, but we are trying to get that information out there to our military family.
I love that. Perfect. Thank you, Simone.
Thank you for sharing that. I was going to chime in. One of the things that the agency has done through the council to start is to invite staff from TEA that can speak to a particular policy or statute. So, for example, some council members may be more familiar than others with the Texas Freedom Accounts. And so it might be helpful. I can offer to see if we have a staff member who might be able to provide any just background so that there's a shared understanding of the council. And then from there, discussion of if this might be how the council might want to, or if this aligns with the priorities for the 2026 and distribution of information, what that might look like. But starting with like an informational session so that there's, again, kind of a shared understanding. Understood, Dr. Kraft. Thank you so much. Would that be helpful? Is there any interest in having, if we can identify a staff member who might be able to give an overview, some information about the policy at a future meeting as an agenda item?
I would love that so that we're all on the same page.
We can look into that. Thank you. Other updates or reports from members? Well, again, the invitation is a standing one for each meeting. There's probably more to share than you think of in the moment, but jot them down as they come up. I think these can also be issues that have come up that are with or without resolution, because that's what the council one of our roles is to address those issues and topics. And that actually is going to segue me to a slide here in a bit. So hold that thought. And we'll go ahead and, unless we have, let me actually last call for other reports or updates. All right, then we'll go ahead and transition to the 2026 council priorities agenda item that I had mentioned. So this is what I was just referring to about issues and topics. Wanted to start with just a reminder. I think this would be a helpful part of, I've mentioned onboarding and one-pagers. For future council members, the role of the State Advisory Council is to assist in dissemination of information about the military compact. But 2, 3, and 4 are all kind of related to identifying topics and issues of interest, which is a little more broad than the compact that our parents, our students are facing, our districts and schools are facing, and then advising the Commissioner of Education, which is also just advising the agency. And you have 2 TEA representatives serving in this council that we are advising the topics of interest to military families, which I think Member Howard has just done. The 5th role of the council is advising TEA regarding dispute resolution issues related to the military compact. And I think, if I haven't said already, the priorities the council has already identified for this upcoming year really align to this role well, but particularly have some ideas and some conversation about dispute resolution and issues, which I'm going to say are AKA case studies. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a bit. And then we have some compliance items. We are required by statute to convene at least once a quarter, abide by the Texas Open Meeting Act, which includes, I did not review who has done their homework, but we are maintaining our administrative assistant, Juliana Yaga, is keeping track of all of the submissions of your certificates for the Open Meeting Act. We are in fact in compliance. We had to move a meeting to do it. So thank you again for your flexibility of rescheduling so that we were posted for this meeting. But that is one of the requirements that we each complete that training and that we abide by the policies in the Act, the requirements in the Act, and then to establish policies and procedures that govern the council. The operating procedures we just amended as a council. That's another document that we'll make sure that we have included. We do have operating procedures, and I'll make sure that that is included in our share file space that you can read at your convenience and your leisure. Moving to the priorities that the council identified for 2026, there's really the conversation began as just continuing the efforts to increase awareness of the Military Interstate Compact. It is still surprising to hear how many students and parents that they didn't know it exists. They didn't know that there were protections for them at a national level as they move between state school systems. But we're drilling down a little bit more into that. There was the idea of increasing communications with districts with lower numbers of military-connected families that have limited awareness of the compact. One of the action steps that I identified and how we could move forward with this was data. And Dr. Lay just shared with us a slide where we can see across the ESCs where our high numbers of military-connected students are. And so as we reach out and look for those district administrators, we might focus there, and maybe it's a different conversation than about how we can increase that communication with those districts with the lower numbers, because not always, I'm always a little surprised at some of the cases that are escalated to my level to weigh in or convene or coordinate a response to. I'm sometimes a little surprised when it's a district that has a high military connected students, because I think they probably already know this information, but it seems like more often than not, it is one of those outliers. It might be a student who's living with a grandparent, so they're not near an installation or a base that needs that information. So starting with the data and identifying who they are and where they are, and then we can talk more about what kinds of initiatives the council may want to take on to increase that communication. We'd also talked about reviewing the case studies themselves, what the issues are. It's important that the council is aware of what really are these obstacles that we talk about and barriers. We know kids move a lot, and that's hard. But what that actually looks like at the campus level, what are the kinds of challenges that students are actually encountering? And through that conversation, we started to talk about who knows better than our state liaison officers, because they're the ones that are getting the majority of those requests for support and service. So more about that in a moment. Promoting the criteria for Purple Star campuses came up. I want to mention Purple Star campuses are actually, I may pause here for a moment because not everyone may know exactly what a Purple Star campus is. Dr. Lay can speak to that. Her team coordinates that support. So actually, why don't I do that before I say the next thing? Do you mind giving a high-level overview of the Purple Star campuses and application process, Dr. Lay?
Absolutely. Can you hear my audio okay?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. So Purple Star campus designation was built upon the 86th legislature, and it is part of the Texas Education Code. It is a voluntary designation that campuses could apply for, and it signifies that the campus has done an extraordinary job in fulfilling the 4 required criteria of that was designated by statute. So the 4 criteria includes designating a campus-based military liaison. That is not a federally funded position or a required position, but in order to be a Purple Star campus, then you have to have a campus point of contact so that families who may be interested in coming to the school or have questions throughout the school year has somebody that is designated for that role. The second one is an easily accessible and actively maintained campus military webpage. Most districts will have a tiny little snippet about military opportunities, but Purple Star designates that each campus that would like the designation have a campus-based military webpage to indicate opportunities that are specific for that campus, transition assistance. There's a whole list of required components within that webpage. So it acts as a resource hub. The third one is designating and establishing an active campus transition program, because we all know the transition is a difficult piece for military connected students. And so when we can a campus can establish a transition program, even if it includes, welcoming the student, having that point of contact, counseling services that are available. Sometimes it is a student-led or a student ambassador programs, because peer-to-peer, it's a lot easier to connect than it is with an adult. So it depends on the campus, but they have two routes. It can be an adult-led, which would be the campus-based military liaison, or a student-led program, but the campus-based military liaison would have to support that student ambassador program, because there has to be some sort of monitoring. The last one is participation in one of the 3 military initiatives, and this could include the November Veterans and Military Family Appreciation Month, could be April's Month of Military Child, or it could be having a resolution indicating the commitment the district and the school has for ensuring the educational and social emotional success of military connected students. And then the other route is also having active duty military staff members come in to be able to volunteer or support the school in like reading. There's a whole array of things that they can do. So with all 4 of those, if they can demonstrate that they've met those criteria, then they would get the Purple Star campus designation. Included would be a press release by the governor. It would be a letter from the commissioner, Mike Morath. Their school would be included in texasschools.gov, which a lot of our family members go to, and they will look for Purple Star campus designated schools before they start, looking for schools that they want their child to enroll in. But also they receive a high resolution logo of our Purple Star, in which we've seen a lot of creative ways schools will use to make t-shirts, will make banners, and they'll promote it. And it just signifies, it's an easy way to signify to the community and the families that they are dedicated to supporting military connected students and families.
Dr. Lay. I want to point out that Purple Star Campus is, it is cedar fever season in Central Texas. If you know, you know. So I'm a little froggy. Other parts of the state, I'm originally from the eastern part of the state where we did not suffer, or but it is, again, if you know, you know. It's a high allergy season related to our cedar trees here. So apologies for I've held out for about an hour, which is pretty good. But what I wanted to say is that the Purple Star campuses and that initiative, the application and process, are separate and apart from the military compact. So I want to be really clear that those are they're not aligned or affiliated. But when we talk about promoting the criteria for Purple Star campuses, like those criteria, I think we could all agree are best practices for supporting military connected students. And if you have a designated liaison on a campus, that person is going to know about the military compact and ensure that the provisions of those compact are being offered and afforded to the students in that district. And so I think that was Dr. Kraft is not with us, but this was his recommendation. Like, these are criteria that we should be promoting across Texas school districts, whether they choose to go through the application or not. But if we also see an increase in the number of our school districts that are seeking that designation, we are then vicariously supporting the compact. So thank you for that overview. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Excuse me. Number 4, reinforcing the council's connections with our school liaison officers. And I'm going to pause for a moment here. I reached out to Simone to also, if give us just a high-level overview, similar to Dr. Lay, as we talk about the school liaison officers. We talk about them often, but I want to make sure, especially if we have a new council member today, that we have just an overview of this very important role that supports both the compact and our students directly at the campus level.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I will keep it short, but let me start by saying that the state of Texas is represented by an incredible SLO team that works together well and represents the installations where they are stationed wonderfully. So I want to start with that. So our stakeholders as the school liaison officers include the local school districts, community agencies, our installation command teams, and of course, our military families and students. We assist families with the school transition, with placement, with special education issues. We support our homeschool population. We provide deployment support and help in navigating the local school district policies and systems. So if a family joins us, we will help them in navigating where do I need to enroll, how do I enroll, and things like that. We also help with post-secondary education. If a high school student comes in, wants to have information about scholarships, we assist with that. And then, of course, and this is, I have to say, when most of our families hear about the school liaison office, when they have issues in the schools. So we help with navigating the MIC3 as well. So any issues that they might experience, the school liaison officers are there to support. So we serve as the link between the military installation and the local school systems. We provide crucial information to our command teams to keep them informed of school-related issues and trends. So we serve as the subject matter expert for our respective installations when it comes to pre-K through 12 education. We develop solutions with partnerships with all of our stakeholders that will ease the transition and the barriers for our military families. So if we see trends in education, we have several, and every installation might have a different forum, but we spearhead forums that brings together, for example, here, Fort Bliss leadership with our 10 districts to come up with how can we support our families as a region. So it is our task to build those robust partnerships between the installation and the community, and we do that in a variety of forums. Our most valued asset, I think, are the relationships and connections that we have built to state agencies, to local agencies, and to the Texas installations as a whole. And so we are able to assist our military families by connecting them and reaching out on their behalf. So we also actively support our educators by providing workshops on the MIC3 and other research military culture. So that is another thing that we do, that we work with our schools. We provide trainings on MIC3, parent workshops on MIC3, so that we can provide our families with those resources. So no matter where they go, how many transitions they have, they are able to advocate for their children, and they know how to navigate the system, not just here in Texas, but wherever they go. So this I shouldn't forget that we have an active role with the Purple Star designation. Many of the schools that are seeking this designation will reach out to the SLOs, and we help with training. We help with implementation of a peer program for the school districts so that they have a starting point to fulfill all of these these categories that they need to have in order to get the Purple Star designation. I think that, the SLO position is very complex. No day is the same. Monday is not like Tuesday. But I think this is, in a nutshell, what we do. And I hope that helps.
Very helpful and very important work. Just going back to when we look at the role of the council, it just highlights for me that really you do all three of the number 2, 3, and 4, those topics and issues that are interest to the parents and the students, because you work at the family level, but also the identification of those topics and issues of interest to the districts and schools as that liaison, many working directly and side by side with the school system, or even on the base with the school, and then in terms of advising the Commissioner of Education or the agency of those issues, the connection that you have with me and my office, and ensuring that those issues as they come up, there's awareness, and working towards resolution. And so you span all of the entities or parties related to this work. Filling the vacancies on the council, we've talked about quite a bit, so I'll move us forward. I had one question for you, Member Hendricks, and want to open up for if any other council members have questions for you. But can you talk a little bit for us before I move us on about how the school liaison officers are networked, and your interactions as a larger group?
Okay, yes. So we meet on a quarterly basis just to, there's an ongoing, if something comes up and somebody has something to share, we are on a Teams channel where we can connect. But we do have a quarterly meeting where all the SLOs get together to discuss any issues and to compile the MIC3 issues that we are required to report once a year in support of the MIC3 annual conference. So we try to connect at least quarterly to see where the issues are. And it's a very... it's a group that shares a lot of their resources, so we're very fortunate with that. But quarterly is how often we try to meet.
Thank you. Any other questions for Member Hendricks?
So how many liaisons do we have in this state?
Oh, you know what? I would have to. I don't have the
Is
number.
it safe to? Is it about 20?
It's I think a little bit less than that. Yeah.
Which I learned in my first annual business meeting for MIC3 that there are states that have 1 or 2. Wow. But we are Texas. We're a much bigger state where we've got a lot more kids and a lot more installations than other states. So they are almost 20, stay very busy.
There are 16.
16. Thank you. Other questions? All right, with that, I will kind of transition to the last kind of order of business or discussion I'd like to have with the council today. I did want to show Dr. Lay helped to pull together this graphic. She didn't help, she did it. On the left-hand side, we have our membership. You can see the council members that are identified in statute in yellow. We've got some additional representatives that in the operating procedures, the council identified that TEA would reach out to or would designate. We are required to have a military representative for each branch, and those are in green there. So each with the exception of the ex officio positions, will update this to reflect the vote that the council took today. Each branch identifies their own representative. Simone is actually and then the DOD is required to make a designation for for the council. I may not be saying that exactly right, but Simone is our designee identified by the DoD and as the Army representative. Simone, would you say that differently than anything to add, or would you say that differently than how I just presented your role?
No, ma'am. You're
Okay.
good.
Okay. Very gracious. So we took the priorities that the council identified, and they just happened to kind of perfectly organize in sets of twos across these three categories of stakeholder engagement and outreach. And this is not an exact science, but more in the stakeholder engagement and outreach, just these continued efforts to increase awareness of the Military Interstate Compact. And then this is where we place this idea of increasing our communication with districts with lower military connected students enrollment. In our training opportunities, resource dissemination, this idea of bringing in more case studies, as well as using the criteria for Purple Star campuses as potential, training opportunity and leveraging those best practices across the state. And then our strategic partnership and leadership engagement, wanting to make sure we're reinforcing connections with the school liaison officers, AKA our SLOs. So much of this work is happening in both Dr. Lay's shop on the grounds, boots on the grounds with the SLOs. And I think it's just making sure that we're connecting, that we're aware of the work that each other is doing, so that we're aligning, supporting, and applauding that work as a larger entity, the state of Texas, and our support system for our military connected students. Before I move on, also that strategic partnership and leadership is filling our vacant council positions. So we won't necessarily talk about each of these things each meeting, but what I did want to pull out and talk to you about today, I've taken some of those goals and have a document where we've identified some action steps that I'll bring up before the council as needed and relevant. But I wanted to look at the goal of reinforcing our connections with our school liaison officers. And one of the action steps that we had talked about is bringing them into our meetings and this actually kind of feeds two birds with one seed is how we say it in my family. Is also this idea of bringing in case studies. If you see in our second goal of reviewing more case studies so that we are really aware of the direct challenges that are faced by our students. And so this idea of a school liaison officer spotlight in our meetings, I think we could do both of those things and hear from them, both in case studies. I think not limiting that spotlight to case studies, but certainly could be, and ask Simone the question of how frequently, because I think they could also kind of set themselves up if we could take a little bit of the time of those meetings and what they might like to present to the advisory council, and I can work directly with Member Hendricks and kind of scheduling, figuring out what agenda items we might bring into this, the idea of this spotlight. I wanted to kind of ask the council, is that something that we would want to just kind of pilot and bring into a meeting? Is it something that we think we would have the time to address in every meeting, as well as would like to hear from Simone if she thinks that what she thinks would be the right cadence of that. But yeah, so I'm just kind of opening that up for discussion about establishing an agenda item where we hear from the school liaison officers. That could be it could be also, Member Hendricks, an item that you lead, maybe you present, and then it would be at your discretion if you wanted to bring in a member to co-present with you. So just wanted to have some discussion around the idea of creating this spotlight agenda and the frequency, if this is something we would like to pilot or make a part of the regular standing meeting items.
Can I just add that I think it might be important for all of you to meet the SLO team. I mean, I'm not sure if at every meeting, or I mean, that's up to your discretion. But originally, I think it would be great if the SLOs could be present so that you can know who is there to represent which installation.
am taking notes that we can certainly look at different ways that we could coordinate that in the future. Have some support in the chat from Member Howard. And then once we've done that, though, moving on to the idea of bringing in this idea, I've been using the term spotlight. We might discuss a bit if that's something that the committee would like to add as one of our standing items of the agenda, or starting with, or as needed, as there are items to discuss that come out of the quarterly meeting from the school liaison officers.
Maybe we could combine the spotlight with the case study to where a SLO is, you know, highlighted, but can also bring some of the issues or concerns to the council.
All right. Yeah, I think what we can do, since we're a small group today, we will continue our efforts at number 5 of filling our vacancies. I think what we can do is, Member Hendricks, if you and I could set up some time to meet and maybe figure out what how to move forward with this item, what that might look like, and we can talk more about cadence. What we think is the right timing, if it's something that we'll just do on an ad hoc basis, or if a schedule would be easier. And so I think if you and I could talk offline and then come back at the next meeting, potentially with an item and or just with a plan for moving forward and how we will better incorporate our school liaison officers and their activities in our meetings.
Yes, ma'am.
That would be great. The last item, so let the minutes reflect that Member Snyder and Member, I never did change my name, I'm still Zoom webinar, but Member Snyder and Member Hendricks will meet offline to discuss a plan moving forward to integrate and reinforce our connections with school liaison officers as a part of our standing state advisory council business. The last item that I pulled out for this meeting was about developing continuing efforts to increase awareness of the Military Interstate Compact. And so one of the things I would like to do, and we can talk more at a future meeting about if this is work that we would take on during a committee meeting, or if there's any members who would be interested as a subcommittee and meeting offline, to start to develop kind of a communication plan, just starting with what communications we as a council might want to disseminate as one of our roles in disseminating information. I believe it was number 1 on that slide. And so more conversation, I think that's a longer term initiative that we'll just be working at ongoing as a part of council business. But I wanted to start with the month of the military child, which, as Dr. Lay mentioned, is coming up in April, and asking the group if there's any activities in which the council would like to support or engage in support of the month of the military child. Again, small group, new members. So just to kick us off in this conversation, in the past, we sent out, the agency sent out on behalf of the council communication to each of the installations, just reminding them about that it is the month of the military child. We could include links to Dr. Lay's resources that she mentioned, their webpage, the toolkit. So that I'll go ahead and offer up that idea because it's something the council's done in the past. And so we can talk about that's something you'd like to do again. And if you have any other ideas or suggestions that you would like to present. I will ask as we get to the end of our meeting I will ask that in a more direct way. Would the council like to send out letters to the installation commanders regarding the month of the military child again this year? Are there any objections to said letter?
Would it be more beneficial going to the districts versus the installation commanders? Because I think military installations are very well aware that April is month of the military child, not just from an education lens, but I think a lot of the districts and the school staff may not know that. So maybe in parallel, if we are going to send a note to the installations, also send it to the local districts that may not have that big of a footprint of military members.
A suggestion. Dr. Lay, have we historically sent out a to the administrator address about month of the military child or press release?
We have not, but we do send out a newsletter and a listserv announcement prior to. But since we are rolling out a Texas Education Agency toolkit for the month of military child, we are waiting for that. And it would be a good idea for us to connect with our marketing and communication department to be able to send out a TAA.
We've got a couple of different communication mechanisms. So let the minutes reflect that we'll work with Dr. Lay's office to advertise and promote the new toolkit. Given that the toolkit is a new resource, I do want to come back to the military installations and ask if if we would still want to send a letter letting them know the toolkit's available. And is that the right avenue or point of contact? Installation commanders, or is there a better place to direct those communications?
From my perspective, the installations commanders would be the right source, and then for Laughlin specifically, it would just get turned over to myself or Jeanette as a SLO.
You're saying for your base, we just send it directly to you and bypass the process.
No, it'd still be good. It would still be good to engage with the installation commander so that they know.
Great. Simone, is there anything, how do we best, Dr. Lay, do you have a direct line of communication with the school liaison officers that information would go directly to them, or do we need to use a different network other than what we just discussed, the commanders and to the administrator address?
No, we have a directory of all of our liaisons, our school liaisons, and so we can send out communication through that avenue.
A question that I have is I'm still learning the landscape. TEA has an identified date, but individual campuses, you said, can identify a date that they would if they choose to celebrate, that they would celebrate Purple Up. So that might be different across the state.
Yes, we just established, because our grantee is with MSEC, that MSEC and TEA would celebrate together to show unity. But we do know that even MIC3 will designate a different day, and then schools, because they have conflicts with state assessments, sometimes they don't have the opportunity to do all the activities that they would like to. They would designate a different day.
Thank you for confirming that. Great. Well, so we have a couple of action steps, and I think we can also just, as I mentioned, a communication plan. I think we could just make that a part of the standing communication plan, that we will do that. And so we don't need to ask every month. Those will just be standard steps that we take, but always open to new suggestions if there are other ways, new and different ways that we can celebrate the month of the military child. That moves us to upcoming events, which is really our last item. Just letting folks know, if you have not, need a comma somewhere where I have a period. Sorry, I shouldn't out myself. But on February 26th, there is a Military Compact 101 training for members who have not completed their training, or any member of the public who's interested. These are the trainings that are virtual, online, conducted by the national headquarters. So just letting folks know that date is coming up this month. The Fort Hood Annual Education Summit is conducted on February 27th, 2026. So that school liaison network is pulling together a couple of surrounding districts for an education summit, which fortunately I was not able to attend the summit in Fort Bliss last year, but we'll be able to attend the Fort Hood summit later this month. There is an interest meeting, which Dr. Lay covered. Just wanted to pull that date out again for campuses that are interested in submitting an application. That will be included that's included in this presentation, that will be posted online. If you didn't catch the link or information on how to find that earlier. I also pulled in just the professional development meeting that she highlighted, and then of course our Month of the Military Child. And as we just discussed, Purple Up Day for Month of the Military Child will be celebrated or acknowledged and celebrated by TEA and our grantee MSEC on April 10th. Last upcoming events I want to make sure folks have on their calendars are our State Advisory Council meetings. The next two meetings that are scheduled are April 20th, 2026 and July 20th. Oh my goodness, we're missing a 2 there. July 20th of 2026. We will need to determine our one more date in October to round out 2026. And so we can probably discuss that in April. We'll identify that a meeting date, and then if we have any issues with it, we can discuss that in our next meeting. With that, to our final item, we come to adjourn. I will go ahead and call that as 2:39, adjourning the February meeting. I will talk to you about that. That's a great question, Member Howard. I think we can certainly coordinate that if that invitation is not already en route. So we'll talk to you offline. If anyone else has any other questions or comments, please let me know. But we, for February and Q2 meeting, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.